Hello everyone, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm doing an interview around The Witcher Path of Destiny together here with Łukasz from Go On Board. Good morning, Łukasz, how are you?
Hello everybody, it's good afternoon for me already, but I'm very happy to be here and talk to you again with another Witcher board game from Go On Board, so yeah.
Time-wise, it works out, you know, you're like 6 hours ahead of me. This video is actually going up in the afternoon, so I'm pretty sure this video is going up at your time of day as opposed to my time of day, which is currently morning. But either way, let's go ahead and get into this. The Witcher Path of Destiny currently live on GameFound with over 20,000 backers backing the campaign, over 40,000 people following the campaign, and a whole bunch of things that have happened along the way. My review of the game just went up on my channel yesterday. You can check that out. And also, of course, a disclaimer that I do work for GameFound. Take that into account as you watch this video. This is a Board Game Co. focused video around this. Is not GameFound related at all, but just take that into account. But past that, The Witcher Go On Board. The Witcher not Go On Board. I've said that twice now. The Witcher Path of Destiny. The Witcher Path of Destiny is going to be a new game in the Witcher universe from Go On Board, from you guys. And there's a lot of things about the game that we're gonna go ahead and get into. But do you want to do, before we dive into like the questions part, do you want to do like a short 60-second overview of what the game is?
Yeah, sure. So it's a 1 to 5 player board game that is a competitive game where you as a team set out on one of the adventures from the books, and it's rewritten, so with not only a story that you know, but it also could have an alternate endings, and each story also sets the rhythm for the game. And even though we are a group and our actions affect where the story goes, it's a game where we compete to become the main character, the main hero of the story. So this is the base game with 3 different tales, and each tale is not as one and done scenario. There are more like game modes, game variants, each with unique components, mechanics, and there are 4 more on top of that, each with unique components and different gameplay changes and more characters, more stretch goals, but 2 more expansions, 1 versus all Wild Hunt and full cooperative expansion, Legendary Monsters.
So that, I was going to say, I've noticed as we're talking that while doing this video, I'm aware of nearly everything that is currently in the campaign. And I noticed an extra box, which isn't currently in the campaign as of me filming this. So I definitely had questions about that full cooperative expansion.
Yeah, of course, this is what happened. If everything worked out, this is what happened for the viewers yesterday, so later today for you. And just so you know, this is a stretch goal box that I have here and a separate standalone RONIN game that you can also add to your pledge, and a lot more stuff. This is just some of the prototype components that I have here in studio, but of course full detail you can find on GameFound page.
Yeah, and I believe that's 7 tuck boxes to your left or to your right, whichever side it is. And I think all of those have currently been revealed in the campaign.
Yes, all of them have been revealed on the campaign. Of course, maybe some things new have been revealed since we are recording this video, so you can go ahead, or our viewers can go ahead and check it out, because this is just last few days of the live campaign. And as of the recording of this video, there are still few stretch goals that we are able to add if we are able to unlock them.
Cool. Well, I'll go through some of my questions. We'll get to all the stuff on the table, but I have a bunch of things around the game, around the expansions, around questions around the game design. In fact, my first question is not even so much about this game, but more so that you've previously done The Witcher Old World, and this is your second dive into the IP in an entirely new game. Why go back to back on The Witcher, but in an entirely new version of it? Both from a stance of game design, from a stance of the potential confusion that can cause. Why that choice?
So, you know, it's the story behind this particular project. It's on one way pretty simple and easy to grasp. On the other hand, it's very it has different layers and things that, you know, normally happen when you do such a big thing. And it started the conversation about the project started a little over 2 years ago, and a lot has happened with the project development and us preparing for the campaign, etc. But the short answer would be we saw how big the potential is for games set in the Witcher universe, and we wanted to touch upon another important thing in the universe. So, of course, there could be many different Witcher games. The Witcher Old World is an action-adventure game with some competitive elements. This one is going through the stories but it's not like, okay, let's read what we know already, but our focus and our goal on our side and for CD Projekt Red, for that project, was to have the game, easy to get into, but challenging to grasp the full potential, to be excited even for gamers, and to be competitive. So it's not like, okay, we've went through the story, let's put it aside, but let's go back to it, and not only discover the different epilogues, but have the over-the-table excitement of, competing with another player. And of course, we love co-op, we love solo. So like this is one versus all. This is full co-op. There are solo modes for majority of the tales and solo cards for the characters, but it felt more like elevating the stories and the experience of the different characters in the world to have that really replayable and competitive.
Speaking of competitive, I'll change the order of some of my questions here. Both in The Witcher the Old World as well as in The Witcher Path of Destiny, you started with an approach that was more competitive in nature. Not necessarily inherently direct competition, but ultimately one player trying to win against the other players. Yeah. And in both campaigns, you got a large degree of pushback around the perceived nature, and I specifically say perceived because I know you've addressed some of the nature of the nature of the Witcher universe, but you've gotten some pushback from the perceived nature of people who view The Witcher as a cooperative themed kind of approach, and then in both times you're diving into it competitively. Why, and like both times, and like especially you mentioned there's an expansion we'll get into more, you have a semi-co-op expansion, you have a cooperative expansion, there's a lot of things we'll get into, but why both times the focus on competitive? Like why is that the core, meaning why does there seem to be that disconnect between the player's vision of the universe versus yourself or CD Projekt Red or whoever's version of the universe?
I think that the disconnect is only a perception thing, but also, of course, it's an issue of finding everything in one game, which is impossible, right? So there are people that prefer just co-op. There are people that prefer the challenge of going against another player, and of course, the nature of how competitive those games are. It's not like direct. Player interaction, negative player interaction. It's more indirect, and so we are focusing not on the type of a game or type of a product, right? But when we knew that we want to play, we want to try to create a product that will elevate the stories and show them in a new way, we were looking for the best possible game that will fit into the idea, right? So for us, it's more looking for the best possible game and then giving you the best gameplay experience, right? So maybe it would be communication-wise, it would be easier to say, yeah, The Witcher and the stories and its co-op. But then when you get into that, right, and then you play the game and you see that, it's like, oh, okay, I went through these stories, what now? No. The better game in our mind, right, is to allow you to have the competitive but not negative interaction, direct interaction, but more like, okay, we're going together, but we are competing. So there's this excitement at the same time with the excitement of learning the story and getting to know it and trying to position myself against the different mechanisms that appear here. So I believe, but of course, like time will tell, but I believe that people that when they get the game, they will appreciate the gameplay a lot. And we have put a lot of time and effort into refining the basic mechanics, the different ways the three base tales approach things, and every next tale that adds not only a story, but way, way more than that. And so I think people will appreciate how much length and how much depth there is to this product, even though the first step to get into that is pretty simple, but then you can take the next one and the next one and the next one.
Speaking of the way you push those tails, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the way it's currently structured is you have 7 tails in the game. 3 of them are going to be in the base game. Then the other 4 are going to be available at retail in separate expansions. But to any backer of the game, they get all 7. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So the 3 are in the standard, both in standard and deluxe, and there are some component differences between the 2. And those 4, or I would say everything that you can see in stretch goals right now, with some small exceptions. So like, for example, solo cards for basic characters and solo cards for basic 3 tails, they go in the box. But everything else, so 4 tails, the characters, the voice of reason envelopes, the companions like Shani or Zoltan, all of that backers get for free, and it will be part of a paid expansions probably, because there's a lot of content. So similarly to what happened with The Witcher Old World, where we had Adventure Pack, Wild Hunt, and Monster Trail, which were part of Stretch Goal box, and then in future they will appear as separate paid expansions. And of course there is one more tale here with the Wild Hunt expansion, where you go one player plays the Wild Hunt and goes against the rest of the team, and the Legendary Monsters doesn't have a separate tale. It has a separate game mode where through 3 rounds of the game we are fighting against one large enemy, and we either collectively win or we collectively lose, and there are different ways to do that.
And then as far as the RONIN expansion, and we'll get a bit more into it later, but as far as the RONIN expansion, how many tails are in there, or is that a different approach?
Also, another different approach to the game, since this is kind of like a spin-off, and it's more like visual it's more like a visual or idea than a particular story set in that universe, right? There is one manga created by CD Projekt Red with Rafał, who is co-creator of that game, but it's more of a game mode that is based on the card drafting and tableau building, but pushes more player partnerships where we are competing, but we have like a small alliance with both of our partners, like our neighbors at the table, and we are trying to draft and play cards in a way that will help the player on my right and on my left, which eventually will help me. So of course visually completely different. There are different action cards, the same characters, but visually different action cards, and the different way you earn victory points. So
so that doesn't have a variety of tail structure. It's a different system.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, because I'm aware that's a standalone game, and I'm aware of some of the basic ideas of leaning a bit more into the cooperative play elements. I guess speaking of which, like so the cooperative play elements you just touched upon, the idea that you're working with the people to your left and your right.
Yeah. So this is that. So for RONIN, there are 5 partnership tracks, and they're 2-sided. So there are actually 10 different tracks. So after we choose our characters, we place them on one track between every 2 players at the table, and by playing a certain card from here, from the main deck, that we are able to move the marker on the track to our right and to our left. And sometimes it's like obvious. Okay, I have something that will work with you. Will you work with me? And sometimes there are cards that require the player to my left or my right to do something, and I'm like, so we are talking at the table like, guys, who will play more yellow cards, because I have something that will help us both. And when we move on the track, we move together and we get bonuses there, and some of them even allow us to exchange our abilities. So if I am one particular character and you are a character to my right, I will have something different than the next time we have a different character setup. So there's a lot of variability there. So I think if people enjoy the base structure of the game in the Path of Destiny, they will enjoy it also here with a couple of big twists and a different game structure. But of course, if you're looking for the Witcher tales, like the stories that you know from the books or from the TV show, then this is what you have here in the Path of Destiny with the stretch goals and of course some like very Witcher themed aspects added in both of the expansions.
So speaking of those other two expansions, the Wild Hunt is both semi-co-op and one versus many. So how does that manifest in the game structure? Like, how does it manifest in the mechanics of the experience?
Yeah, so one player takes the role of Wild Hunt, so they get double layer player board with 5 abilities, longer experience track, and they also get a play mat, and they get a huge miniature to use on the initiative track representing the whole Wild Hunt. And we have 4 generals that I move on the play mat, and they allow me to unlock special abilities that I draw at the beginning of the game. So there are 4 different stacks and I get 1 card. So there's like a whole system that I built at the beginning of the game, a lot of variability here. So I, as Wild Hunt, would try to make your experience, to make the game for the other players as hard as possible, as tough as possible, and gain more points, more symbols, more experience for myself. But the other team, they can also cooperate and try to stop the generals, get some things extra if they do. They also have, they also get some additional special cards to use between them. So one player plays as the Wild Hunt and has much more things to do and a different experience, but also the rest of the group also have a different experience where they need to talk at the table and discuss. And what's interesting is that the Wild Hunt player is the one that decides on where the Path of Destiny token or the Destiny token is placed. Yes. So that player actually, he like leads the way. So the other players have to observe, and Wild Hunt tries to trick them. So and it also has solo mode. In it, and of course a different tale with different endings where Wild Hunt came to the continent to capture Ciri, right? And when you get both of the expansions, there's also if you get like the gameplay all in, so that game and those 2 boxes, there's also another small or not so small exclusive expansion that works for both. So for that expansion, it adds the Wild Hunt ship, and it helps to protect the generals, and added cards to the cooperating players. But also, it can make Wild Hunt a opponent in the co-op expansion with special cards and using the miniatures here. So there's like 1 versus all co-op and another expansion that works with both of them.
Now, in that 1 versus all, do the players win together, or there's a singular winner?
Yeah, there's either the single winner Wild Hunt wins, or the rest of the team wins. So it's like if there are 3 of us, it's either me or my 2 opponents. They will win together again.
So just to clarify, when you say when I hear semi-co-op, usually what I think is that we all are working with a common goal, but ultimately there's one winner. Is that how it manifests?
No, it's 1 versus all. Yeah, it's 1 versus all.
So it's not semi-co-op in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I wasn't certain.
Sorry.
No. So it's labeled within the campaign as semi-co-op, and semi-co-op is generally considered to be a controversial mechanical choice because it often introduces that shared incentive in theory. But as soon as one player is not winning, they're less incentivized to go with the shared incentive. And so I was intrigued as to why that game design choice, but it sounds like it's 1 versus all and not semi-co-op.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And so from there, so that leaves the last expansion as far as the cooperative expansion. Mm-hmm. So before we get into what it does, there's been a lot of push the entire way through from various people wanting co-op. And there's also been a bunch of changes. There's been times we've been adjusting to feedback. I know that, Dandelion's pose, you adjusted to the feedback of the community.
Yes.
The stitched edges of the playmat is something you adjusted to the feedback. Adding standees to the deluxe box. So there are times in the campaign that you certainly have adjusted to the feedback of the community, while also being plenty of times that, like as you've addressed in one of your large updates, at the end of the day, practically speaking, both with regular crowdfunding and especially with crowdfunding with an IP involved, where you have to work with your licensors and the other parties, there are times you just can't make certain decisions on the fly as quickly. They are bigger, they are larger. So I guess my first question is, was the cooperative expansion always in the works, or is that something new or tweaked or adjusted?
It was always in the works, yeah. So that there are things that we can draw from the ideas that the community has, and then of course it has to go through our developers and through the graphic design team, right, and through other channels, and to make sure that we can actually offer something that will work within the game, right? So, and I think that this is, and one of the things, as you said, the miniature pose, that type of thing, and stitching, but also the companions. This is a thing that we didn't think of before, and this is something that
the companions are new.
Yeah, the companions are something that was inspired by people. So of course we took our time to make sure how to implement them well, right? And of course there are the main characters, and there are also characters that are that could play a role, but maybe not the major role in the story. And that got us thinking on how to add them in a way that will make them also interesting and add variety to the game, and to add them in a way that will work with all the tales. So it took some time, right? But companions are a thing that was inspired by our community. But legendary monsters, so there are 4 monsters here, and so all of them are something that we have been talking with CD Projekt Red for some time now, right? To make sure that thematically it works. Then of course each of them has completely different abilities, because the game is we have a miniature for each monster. I have one prototype miniature here, and this is for the Leshen, right? There is Leshen monster in the Witcher Old World, but right here we have a different, bigger version of him that is the legendary monster in this game, but also can be used as legendary monster in the Old World, which I can get to in a second. But each of them has different unique abilities. They play differently, so we have play tested all of them, and it's from 1 to 5 players, and trying to work on the balance, the different challenge cards that are here that players get and have to work together to kind of not only try to deal as much damage to the monster, also protect themselves from his damage, which happens because each player gets life points, and if one player at the table loses all their life points, which happens, then everybody loses. So we have to be careful and discuss and observe what are the options for the monsters to do, what are the possibilities, what's the next attack coming, and there is also a lot of tension and need to cooperate. And there are also challenges that players draft. There's a pile of challengers cards, and we put them out before every round, and we have to discuss, okay, I will take on that challenge, so I have something to do for the entire round again myself. So this was in the works for a while. We knew that our community, people that have backed us before, they would probably like something that is completely cooperative. We also like co-op games, of course, and our next project is a co-op game. So just some small tease.
Within the Witcher universe or not within the Witcher universe?
This is all I can say for now. So yeah, sorry, but
Okay.
so yeah, that was in the works for some time now, and when people started asking for that, we were happy that we started working on that some time before. And similar with the Wild Hunt, people, even before we announced it, people were like, oh, maybe 1 versus all. And we're like, yeah, okay, we got you covered. We've been working on that as well. And also, we wanted to do some small nod to our previous game. So here there are 4 monsters, and each of them have their miniatures that are done in a way that you can use the mini and special cards. We have added 4 large cards here to combine those 4 monsters with the 7 monsters in the legendary hunt that we did for The Witcher Old World. So it's like a small connection, even though it's a different time and different place. You can get something out of that and put into the previous game.
Speaking of nods to your previous game, this kind of goes back a bit to my original question, but just in terms of the pure marketing, logistics, all these things down the road, to a certain extent, like, I mean, just as a consumer who has seen these things happen in other titles, like most notably the Valeria universe, but other times, I'm even just concerned about the nature of being like someone saying, oh yeah, you should get the Legendary Hunt expansion for The Witcher, or you should get the Wild Hunt expansion for The Witcher, and that resulting in degrees of confusion as people go online to buy their favorite expansion for the wrong game.
Yeah, that is, I mean, of course there are some things that overlap with the 2 games, with the names and with the stories, etc. So the game, this one, right, it stands out visually pretty strong from what we did before. So the visual artistic style for even for the covers, not only for the components inside, we wanted to keep the quality or even try to do even better looking game than we did with The Witcher All the World. And I think people will appreciate that as well. But visually, those 2 stand apart. And of course, naturally, if there are more games within the same universe and they have the first name similar, so like The Witcher something, people can get confused, sure, but that's why there are the people working at your friendly local game stores that help you out and say, okay, no, this one goes with this one and this one goes with that one. So yeah,
it works for your friendly local game store, not as much for the online orders. All I'm saying is be prepared for some degree of people who get the wrong thing, not realizing. But past that, we touched upon companions briefly, and you mentioned that they were a new change to the game based on backer feedback. I think I've seen 2 so far. How many are planned?
Again, could you please say that again?
With the companions, you mentioned that's an inspired change for your community. I believe I've seen 2 listed in the campaign. How many companions do you have planned?
I'm not 100% sure, but there should be some new ones if you go to the campaign page now. I mean, our viewers.
Yes.
So we have more than just 2, and there are 2 companions that are in the Legendary Monster expansion also,
Okay.
because they are thematically and mechanically connected to hunting monsters. So Lambert and Eskel. So 2 Witchers, right? You can choose one of them and add as a companion to the team that helps you out as you try to kill the monster that you're fighting. So you have seen 2. There are more as stretch goals, and 2 are added here. Of course, the list could be long, but we want to focus on the main side characters that people would want to see in the Witcher universe.
Yeah, because I think part of my question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you're going to use 3 companions per game.
You use 1 companion, but he uses 3 different abilities, right? So
3 different abilities.
So
so it's 1 ability per chapter?
Yeah, 1 ability per round or per chapter. Yeah. So
okay. I thought it was 1 ability per choice. Okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah. So it's in 1 round we see 1 of the 5 different abilities that 1 companion has. And actually Zoltan has the 6th one with his friendly parrot. But you draw 1 of the cards, and this is open to use for 1 round, and then in the next one we put out the 2nd card, and then in the 3rd we put the 3rd one out of 5. Of course, you could mix it up. I mean, nobody asked that yet, I think, but maybe people will start, and I think it should work, right? You could like, okay, let's have Shani in the first round and then Zoltan in the second and maybe somebody else in the third. But of course, if you get one character, then they have their own like feel to them, yeah, to the way they impact the game. So it's more consistent. So I would suggest playing with one, or I would suggest playing with none at the beginning and right grasp the basics of the game and allow the game to grow as you play. So this is another thing that we wanted to make sure with this project is that we still retain the low entry level to the game, and of course the game has depth to it even within the basic rules and the basic 3 stories, right? But the depth grows as you play. If you add one of the expansions, if you add companions, if you go through more advanced tales, or if you open the envelopes and you add the stuff to the game that affects the whole gameplay, of course you can always back out of that, but the game will mature as you play it more.
Gotcha. Now, I haven't seen yet shaded miniatures added as any option. Is that something that's planned for the campaign?
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that this is an option that we should introduce in the Pledge Manager, so after the campaign. So there are a few things that people are suggesting and asking for that we will add later, just because of the time constraints and the amount of time it takes us to prepare some things, present them right, also make sure right we write all the copy, make work on the different language versions for the campaign, and so we have to like list our priorities. And for example, companions was like higher, and making sure we work on that was higher, and shaded miniatures and few small things may appear in Pledge Manager as a response to what the community wants, and we can still add it after the campaign while not prolonging the whole pre-production and production process.
Sure.
We still want to try to contain that as much as we can, and deliver the game the mechanically and visually top quality, and not make the whole process too long for our backers.
Speaking of which, I've seen a Q&A from the very beginning of your campaign, and I haven't seen any update on it yet, about will the old world be available during this campaign? And you've said, we'll look into it, we don't know yet. Is that one of those things that might show up in the Pledge Manager? I think this is one of the things that may appear there. But the biggest thing with the old world is that we are not adding the exclusives here. So there are people that just want to purchase Old World or the expansions, right? And I think that should appear in the Pledge Manager later. But also many people, and maybe even more people, would want to see things that were exclusive for our previous campaign, and that will not happen here, right? When something is exclusive, you can get it during the campaign. You can get it also during the Pledge Manager, right? Like the same with this game. Through the Pledge Manager, through the late pledge, you will be able to get the things that are exclusive. And then when the game goes to retail, then everything that is non-exclusive, we want our partners for local markets, to distribute and to get to as broad of an audience as possible. And the exclusives are exclusives as a way of us to say thank you to the people that have supported the project, from the very beginning. So the exclusives stay exclusive. Will those ever show up at all in any future campaign of any kind?
No. Exclusives we keep with this campaign, and that's it. And if we do another campaign in the future, maybe things that are non-exclusive, will be available to purchase. But that's it.
Got it. Speaking of crowdfunding in general, or just the nature of the people who want things, the people who have opinions, feedback, and all that, this campaign has definitely been a very successful campaign, but also a campaign with a lot of opinions, which tends to happen the most with the more successful campaigns. The more people you have involved, the more opinions you have involved, and the more conversations, for better and for worse. What has been the best and worst parts about running this campaign?
Yeah, I think the best part was, I think again, similarly with our previous campaign, I think it's mixture of working with an IP that we really love. So it's not just an intellectual property that we were able to secure for our game. On the contrary, we have hardcore Witcher fans here, and you know we are, let's say, rewriting for the purpose of our game, right? To make the epilogues different, the tales, the stories from the books, and you know we are introducing the characters that we love. So this is a great experience because we are putting out a game for the IP that we really really love, and I would say that the second part of that would be the community, because people, of course, as you said, there are strong opinions and many different opinions sometimes with a big group, and we certainly have a big group of people for our campaign. But the fact that we are talking about the game that people seem to like, and you know, of course, they will fully appreciate it once they get it, right? But we know that we have a good game, and we really like the IP, and we really like that people are talking and suggesting things, and you know, working within the universe that they like. So this is a nice conversation to have. This is, even though you know it's hard work, of course, and you have to sift through different opinions and try to figure out what actually people want, and you know, internally decide, is it possible. The experience overall, it's exciting because, as I said, we are talking to a large group of people that share our passion for board games and for The Witcher. So that's the best. And I think the biggest drawback, or the biggest issue, or the biggest problem, the challenge, right, would be, you know, only the feeling that you are not able to deliver everything, right? So this is something that with every project that you have to face and you have to come to terms with, that there are things that people would want and they really seem like a good idea, right? But because of the licensing constraints, or because of the time constraints, or because of the type of a game we have here, etc., right? There are things that limit you, and you are unable to deliver them, even if you feel like maybe they are a good idea. And what we do, right? We just, you know, list them out for future, and if we come back, and I think that we would want to come back, of course, once the game, you know, goes to delivers, yeah, people play and then play through all of that, and we see an option for more, right? Then we already have a bunch of cool ideas that people are sending our way. So that's a challenge, but on the other hand, I would say that's a blessing, that there are even more things to draw from in the Witcher universe.
Speaking of the future, what's next for Go On Board? What are your next games, plans, IP content, going back to your non-IP content, whether the existing games, new games? What's next for you guys?
You know, our next game is not going to be set in the Witcher universe. Our next project that we are planning for next year, and yeah, so probably we will stay within the IP business, or the IP sub genre of board games, but this is not something that we are limiting ourselves to, because you know, it's working with an external partner, and with CD Projekt Red, it's been working very smoothly. So we hope, you know, to continue the cooperation in the future. But it also has its challenges, even when, you know, I'm talking to some new companies and trying to show them how we do things, etc. So yeah, the next project will be an IP license project, but we are not limiting ourselves to that. But at the same time, even though we are, you know, planning ahead, like 2-3 years within our project timeline for the company. We are still growing, right? The company grew from our last project to this one by like 4 or 5 times. So with people that are working for us. So that means 2 things. That means that we are able to bring more projects than we've been delivering or presenting so far as a company, right? So it's been 2 years between The Witcher Old World and The Witcher Path of Destiny, and our next project we plan for the next year, and we hope to do more than one game next year, more than one crowdfunding project, and it's with games that when we show them, they are ready, like gameplay, visually, they are like ready to discuss with our community, work on some details and then print. So we have more possibilities, but also it means that we are learning as we go. So it's hard to map out things exactly, maybe in the future down the line, but for now, exciting things ahead.
Okay, that's all I have. Is there anything else you want to talk about, address, mention before we wrap this up?
No, I think we covered all the topics. I mean, I could talk and talk, but there are things to do for the campaign still. All I can say at the end is that even though we've come to another project with the very strong IP, before we started presenting the game, and even before the campaign started, we felt that this is a challenge. As you said, right? It will be more natural to say, yeah, like cooperative game, let's go through the stories and then boom, close it and the campaign is over. But we wanted to do that game that will, as I said, elevate the stories in a new way and also add a more replayable experience. And that worked best for that project for us, but we were weary of the fact that maybe not everybody will enjoy the approach, or maybe people will not completely understand. Like, okay, there are 3 tales, but there are 3 different game modes. So that was our perspective. So we are very positively shocked or surprised with the amount of support we got for that project, and very happy with that, because that meant we were able to unlock all the things that we prepared, and even add more stuff as we went on. So we are grateful, and if you as our listener are one of the people that supported the project, we are very grateful, and of course we will do our best to deliver the best possible product to you, and we know that when you get it and you play it, you are going to enjoy it.
Perfect. That's all I have on my end. Łukasz, I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much. To everyone else, if you're watching this, if you've made it this far, I'll have a link to the campaign down below. You have 3 days left or so to back this project. I'm sure there'll be a late pledge after that and all of that. But that's basically it. Appreciate your time. Thank you everyone for watching, and everyone, have a good one.
Bye-bye.